at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling their bluff. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling their bluff. Hey, it's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling their bluff. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling their bluff. Hey, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling their bluff. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling their bluff.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
Turn on your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice and control.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Let me make sure I got my audio coming in loud and clear. Welcome to the Hive Mind. I'm your host, Birdie. I go live weeknights at 7 p.m. Central, and on Saturdays, I will stream sometime before noon Central. This is a contrarian thinking live stream. So we think past the headlines, we question the narrative, we ask tough questions, and we do not get easily rattled, triggered, or offended on behalf of other people. And so if you are the person that's always looking to get pissed off and just looking to get angry at others for thinking out loud and having a conversation, you're not going to like this stream. However, if you're somebody who reads the footnotes, you look into stuff, you question everything, you are amongst friends and you have found your people. Now, I have a great stream lined up for you today. And what I feel really confident about is that in the Idaho 4 case, which is what we're going to be discussing, we have reached the end of pretending. I believe that the mask is finally off. It's fully off. And what we're going to dive into today is really not a theory, a hunch. Like I said yesterday, it's not even a hot take at this point. We just need to be a little bit more serious, have an adult conversation about one of the most disturbing and manipulated and misrepresented events in modern American true crime history. And we got to start saying the quiet parts out loud, everybody. I've been really trying to do that the last few streams is say what everybody's thinking for the most part. And I'll start with this. Everybody knew that this case stunk from day one. And I believe that the majority of people felt it before they could even explain it. There was so much speed in the narrative and so much confidence that this is right. Don't waver from it. Don't question it. And if you've been awake or red pilled, you know that that's one of the key tells that, hey, your ears need to perk up. Something's going down here. Something is happening. And when you start to hear this tragic event or this massive event that's on all news channels internationally, world news, literally, and it's being pushed as hard as it is, and there's this same template always used, which is loner, white male, no history of violence, suddenly slaughters 4 people in their sleep. It was done silently. No witnesses except for one of them that came face to face with it and saw bushy eyebrows. There's really no meaningful timeline for that matter. Case closed. Justice served. You better not ask a single damn question. That they were so confident with that too. They were so confident with that. And this case was not solved. It was closed. And maybe there are people that behind closed doors know the truth. I would bet a lot of money that they do. I'm not even trying to speculate on that. I'm not trying to be some crazy creator that just thinks we're being lied to about this murder that seems to have been impossible for one person to commit. So, nonetheless, as you guys are filing in, please go ahead and hit that like button. I have all of the links from this QR code. They're posted in the description below. But if you guys could please take 5 seconds right now and swipe down on the chat, hit the like button. If you want to screenshot this and then tap the QR code when the live concludes, this will bring up our Discord. Make sure you got the app downloaded on your phone before you join. This will bring up HiveMindStore.com. It'll bring up my TikTok and all of the other socials for the Hive. So thank you to everybody that does tune in and continue to support this stream. It's awesome to see how much the Hive is growing. We got a lot of momentum. We're not slowing down. And I'm going to go ahead and say what's up to everybody. KCAS Girl, UFO Dog, Jill McKay, Jen, Not Lamy Jamie says it's -5 in Maine. Boy Mama says 5 degrees in Ohio. Yeah, it's pretty cold where I'm at too. Let's see. Tara, -1 right now. It's -8 in the morning. Christ. What's up, Tinfoil Hat? Claire and Poetic Justice. Critic Rick, always great to see you. Nene, T-Coon, Frisco Chick. Respect my authority. That might be one of my new favorite usernames. I'm going to say it again just because it's fun to say. Respect my authority. How is anybody from like age 45 down, 45 to 30 especially, we grew up with South Park. We grew up with just TV that was real. I mean, look at what the shows that used to be on MTV. Now everybody's softer than Charmin Ultra. And I don't get it. You know, I saw this this short on Instagram today, and it was pretty interesting. Not that it really is that big of a deal, but it showed what like dudes would look like in high school in like the 80s. And they all got these, you know, mustaches that were made of wood. I doubt a razor could even get those things off their lip. To now, it's just crazy. Like, what's going on? We got seed oils. We got all the fluoride in our water. That's exactly right. Kai Balian, 1111. It's just, I don't know what the hell's going on. What's going on? Lori, Amy Lou Who, Philly Girl, Pisces, Shelly, Rebecca Davis. Savvy Rooster says gangstas. What's going on, Savvy? Good to see you. Let's go Gen X. That's right, Jen Nova. Discord Dawn, great to see you. Not Lamy Jamie says, who killed Kenny? Grandma Grizz. Wow. It's cold everywhere, huh? Good morning. Lily Rose, 57. IRN Blue, good to see you as well. KCAM9, Birdman, what's up? Formerly known as Beck, says, I was in high school in the 80s. That's funny. Chili Nugget, not Chillin' Nugget. Chili Nugget Zeros tuning in from Finland. Love it. Anonymous Mystic, good to see you. D-Dog Wifey. Is this anybody's first time tuning in by chance? If it is, welcome to the Hive. Like I said, we're happy to have you here. And yeah, please just quick hit that like button before I get into it. I have a lot of slides prepared. And I had so many slides that I actually took a few out. One of the things that I just want to ask people to look into, if you're in our Discord, I'm going to kind of put a little bit of a request out. It is on the new 1112 camera footage. And if you guys remember, around like 1:01 in the morning on that footage, there's these like flashing lights. A lot of people think it could be like hazard lights. I was watching it last night. I saw a TikTok from Only Available at Not Available, and he was talking about that. And I'm like, that kind of looks like ambulance lights flashing. So I want people to go back, look at the 1:01 a.m. time frame on the 1112 footage, and you'll see these flashing lights. Tell me if it looks like flashers, or does it look like emergency lights on an ambulance or a fire truck or something. It looks like it's flashing too bright and too rapidly just to be a blinker or taillights. So go check that out. And I appreciate that. I'm curious to see what you guys say. Now, the Discord question of the day, it's a little bit of a longer question. This comes from Rochelle, and then we got good old Bad Santa that's calling Rochelle a conspiracy theorist, because Rochelle clearly is not over fluoridated and is able to use her critical thinking skills. And so I'm going to read this, and I thought it was a perfect segue into why the authorities are starting to panic and why all of this stuff was redacted for so long. Okay. So here's what Rochelle said / asked. They go on to say, so if this was done by only one magical ninja who would have zero knowledge of what doors lead to what rooms and who was in what room, wouldn't he have to try all of the doorknobs in the house? So then what? Did he change his gloves after each room? He had time for that, didn't drop any of those, but he left the sheath. And if he didn't change gloves, then how do you explain the lack of blood or prints on doors and doorknobs? You would also have blood under each doorknob, on the door, on the floor, underneath, from, arms dripping, even if he changed the gloves. Someone please explain why every person on this planet is not questioning this stuff with us. That's a goated Discord question of the day, Rochelle, and just a great explanation. It's always awesome when I can read stuff like that, and I'm like, that was put into words better than kind of how maybe I could even say it at times. How is any of this possible? You guys have seen the photos by now. There is hella blood. It's a crime scene, guys. It is a bloodbath. And we're going to be talking about, obviously, some sensitive stuff, some people's real lives, real families. So, an additional disclaimer, I obviously mean no disrespect to anybody. And I understand why there are potential privacy concerns for sure. However, when a case has gone on this long, I want to make this part crystal clear. When a case has gone on this long and it's been in the public eye on tens of millions of screens for years, and the number of people doubting the result has only increased over time, that's concerning for people in the public, not because we want to invade any family's privacy. We want to know if public officials and people in positions of power are corrupt as hell. That's it. Are the police lying? Did they cover it up in cahoots with the university, the property owner, Greek organizations? Is the judge dirty? Are they blackmailed? You could take that and apply it to whatever case you want. But that is really, I believe, why a lot of people continue to dive into the Idaho 4 case. It's because time and time again, after living in a smoke and mirrors world for so long, especially in headlines and the news and the way that it's reported, there's got to be a time that we say, nope, we're digging our heels in. We're drawing a line in the sand. For me personally, it's this case, because I think that this is one of the biggest red pills of all time for how a narrative is solidified before any evidence goes to a trial. And I just think it's weird as shit that the guy who got arrested was writing papers about that exact same thing. I still can't wrap my head around that, Hive. I cannot. That's just either the craziest coincidence of all time, or we're looking at something that I can tell you I won't be able to explain on stream. Now, moving on. Okay. So somebody had tagged me in Pavarotti's video from last night. Again, I don't get to watch all of, really anybody's videos. I work full time and then I prepare for my own stream. But when I do have some downtime, last night when I got done streaming and editing, I watched Pavarotti. He put out like a 20-minute video and he was showing some pictures. And I took these screenshots because I remembered one of Steve G's text messages with the TikTok creator, Brett Norton. Okay. Hear me out on this. Just follow my line of thinking. You can tell me if I'm nuts. This spare bedroom, and I'll put this full screen. This doesn't look like a vacant room at all. Tapestry, there's vodka bottles, curtains on the wall. I mean, yeah, the sheets are gone, but it certainly seems like when I think of a vacant room in college, I think of an empty room. And if there's like, a metal bed frame and a mattress in there, but decorations on the walls, curtains that clearly were hung up. I don't think that these curtains are just standard throughout the house. Clearly people are hanging out in there. They're drinking. There's pillows on the bed. There's at least a mattress cover. So in my head, I thought back to this text message from Steve G. And it had said, what have you heard about the protected witness? Not protected witnesses, being Dylan and Bethany. So I started thinking, I'm like, hang on. The protected witness. Well, when I look at this room, it doesn't look vacant. There was rumors in the beginning about somebody else being there, maybe taken to the hospital, but there's for sure confusion publicly in the narrative about was there an additional roommate, whether they were on the lease or not. And it just seems like what Ava Caldaway says is that clearly it looks like someone's staying there, guys. And a lot of people, okay, so people are saying that BF's the protected witness. Maybe. Again, it's just a thought. I just wanted to share that because either way, this vacant room that we've really never, sorry, I just saw this comment and kind of started talking before I finished my last sentence. But what Down the Rabbit Hole to Hell says is Ashton Couch. Here's the only reason that I'm really, really going to agree with Down the Rabbit Hole to Hell on this is because Ashton Couch's mother was in the Dateline documentary and gave this very vague, she moved away. We don't know if she's going to come back. And her mother was starting that documentary, at least one of the episodes, saying, when Keith and his old balls asked her this question, why do you think this happened? She had said, because they were beautiful. Which immediately when I saw that, my wife and I, we looked at each other and we're just like, here we go. Emotional heartstrings, no real, investigative journalism. But it's just interesting that her mother was talking. You know what I'm saying? A little bit weird, but wanted to point that out because I saw that last night. In addition to this photo, too, again, I'm probably not the only person that realized this, but a lot of people said, oh, it looks like a door frame. If you look right where my cursor is, this looks like a door frame that's leaned against the wall. Well, in a different photo, you can tell this is actually a mirror leaned up against the wall with a white frame around it, and you can see the reflection of the doorknob in it. So I think just from this angle, it looks like the same color as the wall. However, I do believe this to be a mirror that is leaned against the wall. Little observation, not groundbreaking by any means. Just I screenshotted that and I wanted to, put that out there just so that people don't think, oh my God, why is there why is the entire framing of a door leaned against the wall? And that's true. Going back to what I just said about Ashlyn, Tiny True Crime Mama she also said, referring to Ashlyn's mother, she had said that Ashlyn was supposed to be there that night. Now, I'm going to get into a couple of things, and then I have some, what I would say, like viewer discretion advised photos coming up in the next few slides. So I wanted to kind of hit the documents first, and then I'll definitely open up the chat and we'll dive into these photos. And I want to talk about Dr. Turvey. And in this statement claims that Goncalves and Mogan were posed. And this highlighted part says, the evidence suggests that after both victims were killed or unresponsive, they were posed in their shared bed. Kaylee was moved from a position with her head on a pillow to partially atop Madison. Then the comforter was placed over them both. Now, there's a couple of directions that we could take that. And I think we have to understand too, right? We can't believe that there wasn't intent, because in a way, the comforter being over them both makes zero sense, because we know that they weren't killed in their sleep at this point, right? And if you look at the state's argument and the defense's argument, at the end of the day, it's really whose story would the jury believe, because the state argues against Turvey, saying that's really just like a storyboard. Like, can you prove that they were posed or staged? And Turvey, I would guess, would have argued back, well, can you prove that they weren't? Right. And then obviously that's where evidence comes in a trial, which is why it's so important to have trials. Not that I'm, again, telling anybody in here something they don't know, but that is the importance of trials, right? And there's such a danger with that. But if I was on the defense team, I would make them define this, right? Like, what is considered, you say that it might not be staged or posed, but can you define what posing is or what staging is? Is there things that are giveaways that have been used in past cases? Again, I go back to this comforter being laid atop them. And I feel like when you start to ask these questions, you realize that the argument against your interpretation is not proof that you're wrong. Rather, there's this two-word combination that's very important in the justice system, or at least it should be in America. And that's reasonable doubt. Because if there's two ways that something could go, guys, hate it or love it, that's how our system's designed. Doubt survives. Right? And when there's a possibility, that is not a 100% determination. It's just the reality of it. So I thought that was interesting. And then I got 3 other ones here. And I'm just going to read through all of them. Then we can dive into them one by one. But Turvey's now commenting on the sheath that was found precariously placed just slightly under the body of Maddie Mogan and partially covered by the comforter that was placed atop the midsection of her body by the suspects. Notice how it's plural. It could not have fallen accidentally into this location. The second reason Dr. Turvey feels that the sheath was staged is saying that the sheath was new and unused, as indicated by the absence of damage or wear to the leather. And the third reason was that Turvey feels that the sheath was staged because it was face down and had received only a few areas of minute blood spatter, whether it was from impact or aspirated, while resting atop a sheet with significant impact splatter all around. The inconsistency of blood spatter dispersion and density indicate transfers occurring at different times, under different conditions, with different levels of intensity. Now, what's really hard for me to wrap my head around, Hive, is what would the average person that's on a jury, when you look at these photos here, and I should have had them pulled up. Let me just grab that quick. Let me get this photo. I got it ready here. When you look at this photo, and as I read this synopsis of what Turvey says, and that's the sheath could not have fallen accidentally into this position. It's partially atop the midsection of her body, which I don't know. I'm guessing, obviously, that's probably what's redacted here, but it doesn't look like it's partially atop. I mean, is it? I wonder if that just means that, like, maybe the side of the sheath here was touching, maybe like near her hip bones or something. I would guess. But God, I mean, again, the biggest takeaway that I have is that the sheath had only received a few areas of minute blood spatter while resting atop a sheet that had significant impact spatter all around. And so even if on like the furthest side of the spectrum where my brain goes to is, let's say that somebody did go back and place this immediately after the crime as a calling card, which a lot of people have said is, did they leave the sheath as like a calling card, as a symbol, a sigil, one might say? Well, then it still doesn't make sense with timeline and the apparent path that we've gone off of DM's eyewitness testimony, even though she doesn't remember what's real or fake. Think about how much that could mess with the timeline. So you're chasing somebody down the stairs, potentially. You're fighting off a dude that's 6'3" and has enough amphetamines in his system to keep a Navy SEAL up for 3 days. I mean, we're going to get into those autopsy reports. But, I really don't see why Turvey's analysis of this was attacked as much as it was by the state. I mean, I know that's what the state's job is to do, but publicly and news reporting wise, maybe that's why they didn't show the picture of the sheath for so long, guys. Think about it. All of this now, at the end of the day, is after the fact. Brian Koberger pled guilty to avoid a death penalty, and he, waived his right to appeal, and he's in prison for 4 life sentences and a burglary charge. And he's not said a damn word. And Taylor's not making a PR push. This is very unusual. And now is where we're going to get into some of the other photos. Viewer discretion advised on the next couple of slides, okay? This photo has been making its way around social media. It's been in our Discord a ton. I've seen it on pretty much every platform, X, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know if I've seen it on TikTok, but I've seen it, like I said, in our Discord. And it is a reflection of a decorative light bulb, like a string light bulb. Okay. And I'll show you guys this. Okay. I'm not going to keep it on screen too long just because I don't know what YouTube is. I know that they're different for the lives versus a video post, just so you guys know too, if you ever live stream, those rules are different for when you're live compared to a video post. Nonetheless, here we go. Let's get into this. So I'll put this full screen. I have an arrow pointing to it. And I don't know about you guys, but that is a sad scene, because I see what looks to be a female and an ear and a nose, eye, and that's pretty, in my opinion, I don't know what else it could be. So that's obviously very sad. Now, what I did here, viewer discretion advised again, I went and I put a handful of filters on this, just if people couldn't see it. So I also turned it vertically. You can kind of see, shoulder, the head, shoulder. It almost kind of looks like her legs go down this way. But what's interesting though is like, whether, I don't know if she's like cocooned or is that, it looks like a female, but again, here, I'll just play this and I want to get this off the screen. Whoops, kind of glitched out there. So, again, definitely it's more of a clear image of a body than I believe that we've ever seen outside of the unredacted photos that were released and then taken back. Smick said, I thought it looked like a female until you put the filters on it. Sheila says it looks like two girls. Oh, and Luna said, this is Maddie's room, not Xana's. Thank you for the correction if I said Xana's. It does certainly look like the arms are covered. Okie dokie, Lisa. Yep, sorry, I misspoke. Nina says, Birdie, it's a crime scene lady. She had on a white hazmat suit. What? Really? Wouldn't it? No. Does anybody else see that? A crime scene suit? I see somebody laying on a floor. Oh, okay. Gotcha. It is the ISP lady? Where are her arms? Wouldn't they have... Oh, some people are saying yes. Wow. Okay. Okay, so there are a handful of people that think that. Okay. That's interesting. To be honest, I never even thought of that until I just saw these comments. Wow. Again, I'm going to get this off the screen. So we don't have to move on from that, but I guess I didn't even think of the reflection just because it looked like somebody was off to the side. So the angle of trying to think through the angle of a reflection on glass, how that could even be. But I'll have to go through when I'm offline and I'll play around with it. And I'll continue to work those filters. And that's kind of what I was thinking, Kathleen Leary, is why isn't the hair covered? So, whatever. Interesting takes. I have this screenshot too from the text. And guys, I'm not trying to even go in on Steve G at all. But I just feel like as of late, there's been some posts like somebody had sent, they're trying to do, I think, a TikTok live with people to dispel conspiracies and rumors. But again, as genuinely as I can say it, it's just confusing because it certainly seems like there's in their own words, they've said they're not happy with the outcome. You know, one man shouldn't play God. It should go to trial. Bill Thompson's got Alzheimer's, they've heard. And they seemed angry. So it's just interesting that, you know, they listed out, you know, a 4 or 5 part Facebook post about anything other than the official story. But I have this text pulled up here. And what I want to highlight is that, again, this is with the TikTok creator, Brett Norton and Steve G. Steve had said the girls' toxicology reports came back clear. Stacy said Ethan was clear as well. Now, when I pull up, you know, Ethan's autopsy, it's certainly, I mean, the BAC, the blood alcohol content, I don't think that it's that crazy for a dude his size by any means. But based on his height and weight, the 260 mg/ml of amphetamines, if that was Adderall, would approximate to 80 to 100 milligrams, which again is, I mean, I guess I'm not too familiar with it, but from everything that I've looked up, nobody's getting prescribed 80 to 100 milligrams of Adderall. I feel like that would keep you up for days. If it's Adderall, right? Obviously, I would guess that it is based on some of the blue powder that we've seen in other photos. Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying though, is what Boston B9 says. If he's prescribed Adderall, then yeah, you'd be considered clean. You wouldn't be shocked that there's amphetamines in somebody's system. I just have never heard of a script or a dosage that high. Even if you're a big dude. Yeah, so European Brow says 60 milligrams daily is the max dose that can be prescribed. Okay. I still feel like 60 is a lot. It's definitely not like, hey, I'm going to pop an Addy and I'm going to study and I want to get dialed in and, you know, focus up for a couple hours. UFO Dog says, I'm on 60. Wow. Yeah, and obviously people have said, you know, they were snorting it. Obviously you can use Adderall recreationally. Not here to. Okay, so Bondage Barbie says 100 milligram max. Well, okay, so maybe there's difference. It's just, I don't know. It kind of seems like a lot, in my opinion. At the end of the day, whether you're prescribed it or not, it certainly just seems like that is you're not going to be asleep, is my point. You're going to be attent and awake. Can we all agree on that? That if you have anywhere from 80 to 100 milligrams of Adderall, even if you've had, you know, a couple beers and a slight buzz, you're probably not tired. You're coherent. And in my opinion, that's really what I was trying to show that for. It's not if people have necessarily abused it or used it recreationally, whatever. I'm trying to say that I just believe that it's he's awake. Motoman, wow, with the big super chat. Thank you so much. Motoman says, at this point, I'm thinking one state or another, maybe it's a 3-letter agency, is leaking information to taint the public jury pool ahead of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Wow, great thought. The families are trying to plug the media leaks with a pinky finger. I never thought of that. That is interesting. A lot of this stuff started coming out after the WSU lawsuit went public, folks. That is a very good point, Motoman. Yes, and I understand, Grammy H, that it's NGML, not MG. I know, but if you take Ethan's height, weight, and you take the NGML and you equate that to what the average milligrams of Adderall would be, it would be 80 to 100 milligrams of Adderall. That's what I was trying to explain. I just saw a comment on that. And then thank you, Ava says, hey, I love watching your streams. You're very smart. Well, thank you, Ava. I appreciate that very much so. And EK says, did you see a post about the bodies being staged and E and Z having each other's blood under their fingers? Yep, we're going to be getting into that. Thank you for the super chat. As a reminder, all super chats over $4.99 will pop up here. Same thing if you subscribe. So I appreciate everything. Again, guys, I don't want to get into the weeds about the amount of Adderall. All I'm trying to say is I feel like it's enough to, you're not going to be tired. That's what I'm trying to get at. So as far as what's the max, what's not, I don't know. Not familiar enough with that. And then if we move on to Maddie's autopsy, here's what's interesting about Maddie is was anybody else a little bit surprised about Maddie's blood alcohol concentration? I was a little bit surprised. You know, and Batshit Crazy says, am I seeing Marilyn Monroe on my wall? Yeah. I made that myself. I've shown that before. I used to be into art a lot. But anyways, I just thought her blood alcohol level, like, you know, looked drunk, but higher than I would have expected. And Xana had a BAC that was, again, almost as high as Maddie's, and had an amphetamine level of 12 ng/ml. So Xana had 12 ng/ml. Ethan had 260 ng/ml. I look at these numbers too, guys. I look at these numbers. Look at the amount of stabs. 23. 7 to the chest, 4 to the stomach, 3 to the back, 25 to the upper extremities, 5 to the lower extremities, punctures on the outer table of the skull, perforations of the jugular, the heart, the lung, the pulmonary blood vessels. Jesus. All in less than 15 minutes, apparently. Guys, we're not crazy. You know what? That's what I mean. If there's ever a time for us to stand our ground, and if nothing else, again, we're not trying to invade people's privacies. It's just like, this is a murder that was committed in public. And when a murder is committed in public, more times than not, the overwhelming majority of times, we rely on public officials who are supposed to keep us safe and be truthful and take, you know, they raise their hand, they take an oath to serve the truth and to serve the people. If they're not telling the truth, that's what our focus has to start to be on, right? I hope the majority of people can agree with that. Nobody's trying to invade a family's privacy. But at the end of the day, this happened in public, and the number of people that don't buy what we were told has exponentially increased. Oh, that's a good point, John Shepard. Yeah. I'm sorry. Candace said, this is why people think that a woman was attacking Xana. And Sherlock, good to see you, brother, man, says the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but that. Amen, brother. Amen. Kaylee's autopsy results are right here. 24 plus to the scalp, face, and neck, 11 to the chest, 3 to the upper extremities, punctures on the outer table of the skull, injuries to the teeth and tongue, perforations of the subclavian artery and vein, hemorrhage of the chest cavity. The blunt force injuries went to the scalp, so her head and face. Blood alcohol was 0.1. So what does petechial hemorrhages mean? I'm curious. Petechial hemorrhages. What does that mean? I might have spelled that wrong. It's the tiny pinpoint areas of bleeding that occur when a small blood vessel or a capillary break and leak blood into the skin, mucous membranes, or internal tissues. They appear as small red, purple, or brown dots, usually 1 to 2 millimeters in size. They do not fade when they're pressed, and they are not raised. They're usually painless. They're common on the legs, inside the mouth, or the eye area, internal organs. They're not visible externally, obviously. Interesting. So common causes include physical strain, coughing, vomiting, childbirth, trauma, or pressure. Huh. When they are found internally, I'll have to go back and look at it. In organs or an autopsy, that can indicate asphyxia, severe infection, or a systemic illness. And so it was in the eyes and mouth, which I would have guessed that's from being choked. And I don't know if I had all of these full screens, but if people want to screenshot them, here's Maddie's. $13 to the face, neck, and scalp, 5 to the chest, 10 to the upper extremity, wounds of the lung and liver, perforations of the subclavian vein. There's an incision of the nasal septum, perforation of the tongue and oral mucosa. And Sarah Sanjamon, what does this mean? All right. Incision means that there was a cut made in the wall that separates the two nostrils. That's not a natural injury. It usually indicates a medical or surgical procedure. For example, if there was airway access, nasal intubation, or trauma involving an instrument. The perforation of the tongue or oral mucosa, this means that there was a hole or puncture through the tongue and the lining of the mouth. Again, this refers to being intubated or any airway instrument. Resuscitation procedures. It can also occur from significant trauma, but the context matters. And the serosaginous fluid. Yeah, I'm going to say, put these in layman's terms. So pretty much what they're saying is that Maddie had a cut inside the nose that was between the wall of the two nostrils. It usually happens when doctors put instruments into the nose during emergency care. There was a hole or a hole or a tear in the tongue and inside of the mouth. The tongue and mouth lining were punctured. This commonly happens for medical tools used to help somebody breathe, especially in an emergency. And there was blood-tinged fluid in the breathing tubes. There was a watery fluid mixed with a little blood inside the air passage of the lungs. This happens when the lungs are badly stressed, injured, or when someone's struggling to breathe or during life-saving efforts. In simple terms, these findings usually mean the person underwent aggressive emergency medical treatment, especially efforts to help them breathe. They do not automatically mean intentional injury and are commonly seen after resuscitation attempts. Wow. It's an interesting take. But yeah, either way, the layman's terms definitely help understand that. And I agree, Smick, that's a little bit weird. And that's what I kind of thought too, Brandon. It's like, did someone try to help her? I'm here to help you. We were told, someone said that. Yeah, did she live for a bit longer? Was she resuscitated? I agree with you, Chevy Metal. It seems very personal. Suther Dare just said that too. Yep, I'm here to help you. Miss L.O. Briley says she could have been intubated if she was the one that was taken to the hospital and has a death date in December. I think that one screenshot I showed that was Kaylee. Sherlock says, I thought the victims never went to the hospital or had revival attempts. I agree, because the 911 call, it was just for one unconscious person who was hammered and they didn't think they were waking up. Really didn't seem like Dylan knew that anybody was even upstairs. So I'm going to take a breath, because again, I've crashed out enough on this. I still, guys, I go back to when I had the custody queens on a live, and they were talking about, how do you expect me to believe that you're normal if you didn't hear anything, or that you didn't see blood or someone in distress, and you called for just one unconscious person? Can we stop pretending that that is normal? At a certain point, we have to, like, the mask is ripped off. We've seen the photos. We've seen the autopsies. We've heard the audio. We've seen video. Can we stop pretending that this unconscious person somehow was confused? Because the cops go in and it just, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, Sherlock, I agree. We obviously never got the truth at all. Unicorn of Hope says that Dylan and Bethany were lookouts. River Bear Teacup says, Hunter's suspicious AF. I don't care what anyone says. And then going back to Ethan again. Now, Ethan's wounds are a little bit different. Ethan's don't look as like rage kill. I'm not a medical professional. But 4 to the face, neck, and scalp, 1 to the chest, 6 to the upper extremities, 6 to the lower extremities. Big Red Faye, thank you for the super chat, clearing that up. Big Red Faye says that the December death date was ruled out by an auto date listed, meaning, I'm guessing what you're saying is that was like when somebody updated that profile for a victim. Maybe they did it on December 10th and that just populated. Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. So here's what I want to do. In the beginning of the stream, I had talked about the 1112 camera footage around 1:01 in the morning. Now, I wasn't going to show this, but I want people to now think about what we just saw. And it is AI, it's ChatGPT, whatever. I acknowledge that. Let's take that with a grain of salt. But it's interesting that it said that that Maddie's incision of the nasal septum, the perforation of the tongue in the oral mucosa, and fluid in the upper and lower airways is very common in resuscitation. And whose jacket was found on the street that we can see at the end of the Linda Lane dumpster cam? And now you look to where we see these flashing lights at 1:01 in the morning. I got to just find that clip quick. Here it is. Come on. Shoot. I got to get the 1 o'clock footage. Here we go. Outcast has it synced up with the Linda Lane car park. Let me go to 101 though. because now when I hear these, it's potentially life-saving treatment. We saw Maddie's jacket on a fire hydrant, what looked to be a fire hydrant, and now we see flashing lights over here that, in my opinion, they don't look like hazard lights. They look like a damn ambulance. Motorman, thank you for the super chat, says, so here's a question for you, Birdman. If there was a handwritten note saying, die Mogan, with female handwriting, but still there's only one male perp, isn't this technically now a conspiracy? You know, I've really started to dislike the word conspiracy because it's overused, it's thrown out there. A conspiracy is an actual event that somebody committed, right? Like there was a conspiracy to commit murder, there was a conspiracy to commit fraud. This conspiracy theory BS has been jumbled into anybody that doesn't obey or just listen and shut up and wake up and punch in and punch out and go to work and get 40% of their taxes taken by Uncle Sam, you're a conspiracy theorist. Right? So, yeah, when I read that super chat, I agree, Moto Man. There must be an act of conspiracy in order for something to be a conspiracy theory. So, I completely agree with you. Well said. And thank you again for the super chat. Now, I'm going to put this full screen here. This is 12:59:44. So let's watch this. You're going to see some lights flashing up. And type of one quick. Can you guys hear this? Sometimes I got to reshare the screen. Okay, cool. Car started. So now you're going to see it. These people get dropped off right up here, right? Now, you see another light. This has always confused me too. Is this light that we see pop up on the front window, is this light from this car? My first gut reaction is that it's the angles don't work because we don't see the rest of these trees or anything illuminated. So that seems like a separate vehicle over here right now. Right? It for sure seems like this is a different light source. And it's already flashing with the headlights, guys. Okay? Watch the bright lights where my cursor is, and then watch slightly above it on the shingles. I believe you can see a faint flashing light, almost as if, yes, what Shay Weaver just said, it's coming down the road. Great point. Okay. Flashing. Headlights flashing. You can still see the flashing already. I don't know. That looks like I could never imagine hazards being that bright. It looks like there's flash, 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 flash. And it's like there's two different flashes at a different pace. That can't, I don't believe that that's a blinker. And that's just my opinion. I I think it's different because there's a minor flash in between the bright ones if you look closely. And you see people walking away like it's I don't know if something happened right here. People are cutting through and they're going home. Could be a tow truck, potentially, maybe. It just seems like there's too much time in between the blinks. And there's you can hear people talking right now too. Now I'm trying to look down here on the bottom of the screen if I can see any flashes coming from over here because then can we all agree it would be a little bit absurd that a blinker would shine all the way through houses and trees, right? I guess I really haven't looked that closely, but I'm curious if anybody can see this. I'll take the comments down for a second. Let's go back a little bit and tell me if you guys can see, lights flashing over here. See something right in the window. Right there. Now, I'll let this play, and while it's playing, I'm gonna pull up the Linda Lane dumpster cam, and we'll check out that. I mean, that goes on for a long time for a blinker, everybody. Flashers or not, I don't know why you'd turn flash. It just seems I don't know. Again, so I'm gonna go ahead just to 116 really quickly. Again, this is on Outcast page. Shout out to Outcast. Okay, I want to watch from 115 to 117. Right off the jump. I mean, listen to this. It kind of sounds like Kelly. Now, how weird is it that when you're on, okay, this is what I don't understand, guys. So I'm so happy that Outcast did this, and why I wanted to show this time frame is because on the car park, you can hear a lot of stuff going down. This audio right here, if it's synced, how do they not hear a damn thing? Tell me how that makes sense. Nobody's like walking in like, oh, what was that? You know what I'm saying? Nobody, like, how is that possible? So again, what you're hearing is this audio in the bottom right, which is the car park. I'll put it full screen. And how do these people that are on 1112 not hear anything? Come on, dude. In my opinion, timestamps ultra manipulated, audio spliced in. You got Steve G that's even saying that in his texts to Brad Norton. I'm not saying that that's the holy grail and whatever it is, but it's just, it goes back to this is not adding up at all. At all. And it's frustrating. Because if you listen to the Linda Lane car park footage at 1:15 to 1:17, that's some of the most horrendous screams that you hear throughout the night outside of on 1112. But on the Linda Lane car park, that time frame around 1 a.m. is very active. I've said for a long time, did they take the timestamps and mess with them and have the car park say 1 a.m. and say 1112, the same noises or whatever are at 3 a.m. and the dumpster cams at 2 a.m. and who knows? But I don't understand how there's zero reaction from these people at all. They don't even look at each other. They're just solemnly, they're like just very blah walking in. I understand it's a college town, but go listen to what it sounds like on the car park footage. It's, I don't know. I don't know how it doesn't grab your attention at least a little bit. Now, oops. The tinfoil hat conspiracy of the day. You guys are going to get a kick out of this one, especially given the fact, you know what? Hive, I got to tell you, the other day I was driving and I thought to myself, I cannot believe that I stopped vaping. Like I was a smoker all through college, all through my 20s. And until I started streaming and I put it out there to you all, I never could stick to it. I have not picked a vape up since I said that on stream, however long ago it was. I got this stuff, but hey, it's a win for me. And I actually found this tinfoil hat conspiracy today when this popped into my head about how a lot of these, big tobacco companies, they were aware that prior to nicotine being known to be addictive, they were known. So in the 1950s and the 1960s, major tobacco companies, right, like Philip Morris, R.J. Reynolds, Brown and Williamson's, they were all running internal research programs that they treated nicotine exactly the way that pharmaceutical companies treat their drugs when they do their studies, right? And what they found for nicotine, this is crazy to me, it was a behavior locking substance. And all three of these companies, they had, I don't want to say like a shared scientist, but they used the same lab, which is interesting. And these scientists, so their own scientists, found and described nicotine as a drug that's habit forming. It acts on the brain. But the primary reason people kept smoking was obviously nicotine. It's not the tobacco. So This is all before nicotine addiction was ever formally recognized in the public. To me, that's wild. People used to think that you would get, addicted to tobacco, but all of these big companies, they knew that nicotine was the chemical or the piece of it that was getting people addicted. They never told people about it. And I find that interesting. Like cigarettes were engineered and not just like manufactured. I've always wondered, like, what is it with humans and smoking? Like throughout time, like how did that become such a thing? Why do so many people do it? And it's interesting. Like a lot of people say there's benefits to nicotine and some of the receptors in the brain and Alzheimer's and a lot of other stuff. But really why I did this is to kind of humbly pat myself on the back and anybody else that's ever stopped smoking. That shit's hard. It's hard, especially when you go out to the bars and, or you're hanging out up north with your buddies around a bonfire and they're ripping, the Nick stick. But I'm proud of myself and it feels good to say that. And I owe a lot of that to you because I knew that if I were to ever hold a vape again on stream, right, I would get called out for it. And sometimes getting called out for not sticking to your word is one of the most beneficial things that you can have in life. And so on your way out, guys, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. I appreciate you all. And I will be back on tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Central. I got a pretty guest-heavy week next week. I have a guest that's going to be coming on the stream that has never been on before. Very excited. If you're into like the whole PSYOPs and funding and WSU lawsuit, funding from the NIJ and then the WSU lawsuit, don't miss that. That's going to be Tuesday. Wednesday, I have an OG, Dago, that's going to be on the stream. And so I'm very excited for Tuesday and Wednesday. Don't miss those. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Send this to your NPC normie mouth-breathing over-fluoridated friends. Tell them we have no refunds on the red pills. And I hope everybody has a fantastic Saturday. And I will see you tomorrow evening at 7. Cheers, Hive.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.